Hello, this is Chris Pickard at Body Imbalance in Hertfordshire, and today I'd like to tell you about explosive synchronization. Why would I like to tell you about this? Because it's important for the brain and for anyone with chronic pain, especially fibromyalgia. Now, I was going to do a broadcast today about brain-based wellness all by itself, because if you've been to the clinic, you know that in the clinic I have this poster up on the wall. It's just over there. I have this up there and it's called The Power of an Adjustment. Now really what it should be called is The Power of Moving Correctly, especially your spine. And why is it so amazingly good for your brain? So hello Kath, hello Kelly. So I will get into this in a minute, okay? But I'm going to introduce you to the three key concepts of brain-based wellness and exactly what is explosive synchronization and why is it important to fibromyalgia. So, first of all, you've probably all heard of stress, okay? Now stress, everyone's pretty familiar when it comes to the brain. So here's my boxing glove brain here. There you go, it's not a boxing glove, it's actually a brain. Everyone's aware of the fact that if they're, of emotional stress causing a big problem, and as you get emotionally wound up, if you get stressed mentally, this has an effect because through your spinal cord is an extension of your brain, and then an extension of your spinal cord are your nerves, pretty badly drawn. And your nerves go to your muscles, they go to your heart, they go to your intestines, they go to your liver, the stomach, they go down into the bone, they have an effect on your immune system. This is why when you're stressed mentally, it has an effect on your entire body. It can cause ulcers, it can cause heart disease, it can cause lowered immunity, it can even cause you to get fat. And people are familiar with emotional stress, but they may not be familiar with just how devastating it is throughout the entire body. But emotional stress is just one form of stress. There's also traumatic physical injury stress, okay? And that's something, again, people are familiar with the idea of, the body being, traumatized, an accident or an injury, but there's also the chronic postural strain and trauma. And it may have a physical impact, but it also has an impact on the brain as well, this constant physical low-grade stress. And then there's also chemical stress as well, from all the toxins in our environment, and also from a lack of nutrition. This has an effect on the brain as well. And so the brain is constantly bombarded by toxic thoughts, toxic trauma, and toxins. So 3 T's, T, T, T. Okay, and this has an effect of throwing the brain out of balance, which throws the nervous system out of balance, which throws the body out of balance and causes a lot of sickness and disease. And so then I was going to talk about how the power of an adjustment. One of the many reasons that chiropractors and osteopaths get so many amazing results is because even though you can't read this because this is backwards, so this is the right way around, I actually have to write backwards so you can see this. It says emotional thoughts, physical traumas, chemical toxins. And so these things cause problems in the body. They can cause the spine to get tight. When you unlock the spine, it doesn't just get rid of that effect, but when you move the body and the spine, it has an effect up through the spinal cord, into the brain, or up through the spinal cord and into various parts of the brain, and has an effect on all kinds of different areas. Now, if you'd like a copy of this, email me or personal message me. If you're in the clinic, we've got them printed up here, and if you've already got your email me and I can email you a copy. So I will need your email address, okay, if you would like a copy of that to show you what the effect of proper spinal motion will have on your brain. It turns off the effects of stress. But of course what you also have to do to turn off the effects of stress is you have to try and do things to lower toxicity in your environment. There are actually things that we can do in the clinic to actually get into the brain and remove toxins from the brain. There's also fixing the trauma and also fixing how you think. And if you fix these things, then what happens is that the brain becomes massively less inflamed. And so why is this important, particularly for people with fibromyalgia? Well, there has been a huge amount of study into fibromyalgia, and there is definitely a lot of weird things that we don't understand yet. Okay, and I'm not going to go into everything, but the very latest study on fibromyalgia has shown that the way that the brains work in people with fibromyalgia is, instead of when you have a stimulus, like a painful stimulus, certain areas of the brain actually fire off in a synchronized way, but slowly. Okay, this is what's meant to be happening. Say, there's a pain, there's a problem, go and attend to this problem. But in fibromyalgia, what happens is that when you get a little pinprick or a little thing just happening here, the brain goes like this. Everything synchronizes very quickly, and this has been likened to either like an electrical network being either shut off, okay, say a complete blackout in a town, or suddenly coming on, like causing something like a seizure. And so in fibromyalgia, you've got all these neural networks that are firing explosively, explosive synchronization, as opposed to linear, slow, progressive synchronization. And this happens with, well, the people who study this, they only study neural networks. They don't look at all these different forms of stress. And we know as practitioners that some people with fibromyalgia, you work on their physical body, the brain gets better. This is why it's the body-brain connection, which is explained in here. We also know that people with fibromyalgia can have huge success when they work on tempering their mind. They learn about decreasing stress and tension from a mental, emotional aspect. But we also know that people with fibromyalgia get a lot better when you do something to remove the toxins from the brain and you nourish the brain adequately. But very few people do all three of these. And this is why we get so many people with fibromyalgia better, because we also find that a lot of people with fibromyalgia don't have true fibromyalgia. I saw one earlier today. Okay, she had true fibromyalgia. But a lot of people don't have true fibromyalgia. They do have these explosive networks going off, but it's because of the effects of all of these things directly. And so for some people who've been told they've got fibromyalgia, which is incurable, they actually have nothing wrong apart from the fact all of these things need to be fixed, and suddenly it all goes. And so this is why I've got patients who've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia years ago. They go through the process of correcting all of this, and then they don't have it. It's because they never had fibromyalgia. They're just told they were and have lived with it for 20 years. And the problem with normal painkillers like ibuprofen, paracetamol, all these things, they actually make the brain networks far worse. They disable them more, they cause more toxicity, they cause more problems, and hence you get worse. And the drugs just work less because they're actually damaging you. So, if you know anyone that may be suffering with explosive synchronization, or if you know someone that would just like a little bit more information, please share this video with them. Please tell them to watch it. And if you know someone with fibromyalgia, please get them in a calm state. Maybe give them some Ganoderma tea, because Ganoderma helps decrease brain inflammation and helps calm the brain down electrically. Give them some Ganoderma tea or coffee, sit them down in front of the video, ask them to watch it so they can understand more about what's happening and why physical therapies can help a supposedly incurable neurological one. Be well, thank you for sharing, live long and prosper.